Welcome to the Father Jim Clark Show, broadcasting here on Heavens Road FM. Welcome back. And if you're new to the show, you're welcome too. You're the reason we do this. So keep the faith and stay with Heavens Road FM.
Well, as the jingle says, welcome back to the Father Jim Clark Show. Now then, for anybody who is a regular listener here, you may have realised that I have not uploaded a show for quite some time. That's because I've been away on holiday, and there's all sorts of things that I want to do about being away on holiday with you, but one of them is something that happened on the first Sunday of my holiday. I went to Germany for my holiday, and I was in the Moselle Valley. If you haven't been, go. It's absolutely beautiful. But something happened, and I could come at this from a number of ways, and that is that I went to Mass on the Sunday morning to be faced with a smallish church. I suppose it holds about 200, something like that. And in that church, there was an orchestra and a choir and a very full congregation. Now, I consider myself a musician. I've always been a singer and I play various instruments. And I've always been a fairly modern outlooking priest, hence my radio show with Heavens Road FM. But one of the things that I have always shied away from is, that classical music of way back when, 200 or 300 years ago, the kind of Strauss, Mozart, Grieg, Beethoven, all that kind of stuff. Because I never really thought, when you listen to any of, say, Mozart's mass parts, how on earth can this kind of music be put into a modern day liturgy and it sound right? Well, I have to kind of eat my words, really. Because in this small church where there was a choir and an orchestra, they actually played the mass parts written by Mozart. And I was kind of so excited, you'll hear in a second. I knew I had my recorder in the car, so I toddled off and got it. And this is what I said. So, I'm now just on my way down back to the church. I've had to nip up for my recorder because I think it's the 600th anniversary of Bishop Nicholas von Koos, who I think the whole area is named after him. And the bishop here, and it's a whole lot of things going on, including an orchestra in the church. So I'm just going to nip back now. So as you can see, I knew that this was an opportunity not to be missed. So I toddled off, and it was quite a walk back to the car. So Mass had begun by the time I got in, and it went on for about an hour and 45 minutes. And I was so flabbergasted by what I was hearing that I recorded the whole thing. Now, I said that I had to take my words back because, the mass parts fitted in with the modern liturgy absolutely beautifully. The bishop spoke very well. I think there were about 9 priests involved. And this is a man, the place I was staying in is a place on the Moselle Valley called Berncastel Coos. And it's kind of split into 2 parts, Berncastel on one side of the river and Coos on the other. And the Coos bit is named after Cardinal von Koos. And it was his 650th anniversary that they were celebrating. And so it was incredibly interesting to kind of sit back and watch this unfold. And it's got to be said that it was so well, I don't know how well rehearsed it was, because when the orchestra were playing and the choir was singing, obviously they were very well rehearsed. But every time the congregation joined in with the singing, it was amazing. So on the ball, so swift, so slick. It was fascinating to watch. And the other thing about this particular church, and I have visited here on a number of occasions in previous years, their singing is outrageously good. So the congregational singing really went hand in hand with the orchestra and the choir. So, with no further ado, I'll let you have a little quick listen to some of what was going on. This is the opening antiphon to Mass. So to walk in to this little church in the valley at Burncastle Coos, in kind of the middle of nowhere really, to be faced with this kind of music was absolutely amazing. And the Mass, yes, okay, the Mass did go on a little long, but you know, it was fascinating. And after the Mass, I kind of did a lot of thinking about this, and I thought to myself, well, I mean, it was beautiful to listen to, it really was, but did it really add anything to the Mass? Do you know it did? It really did. And I've always been one, really, to even shy away from choirs in modern churches, because I think what happens, or certainly in this country, what I've seen, if you've got a choir, and especially if you've got a good choir, the congregation never join in, and it becomes this, let's all sit and listen to the choir. And I don't like that. I really don't. I think that, you know, modern liturgy, the modern music should be something that everyone can join into. There's the old adage of, you know, a person who sings prays twice. Well, that's all right, but, you know, half the time, if it's just the choir that's praying twice, that's not good. And I've always been a priest that really tries to engage or get the congregation engaged in the music so that everybody can join in. But having listened to this particular Mass involving all these Mozart Mass parts, I've got to say, when it's done right, like it was on this particular occasion, it was an amazing experience. Was it prayerful? Well, yes, it was, because at some point it was, I remember being incredibly moved by some of the music. It was so beautifully done. So yes, it was prayerful, it was moving, it did, I think, add to the liturgy. So I'm sitting here with my arms crossed now thinking, well, you know, perhaps Mozart and his fellow genii, they had something to offer, really. And having only ever, I mean, I did music at school, and so we kind of studied these Mass parts, but to do it in a very clinical way, like in school, or when you are divorcing the music from the liturgy, you know, it's no wonder so many youngsters are turned off, because, I mean, although it's beautiful music, you can't really think that this is going to be something that adds to the liturgy, but you know it does. And I've said, I've got to eat my words, because having experienced this, and it was, hold my hands up to them, it was done very, very, very well indeed. The whole experience of that particular Mass was quite a beautiful one. It was prayerful, yes, and I came away and thought about that Mass for quite a few days. Something which, you know, even as a Catholic priest, I don't think I do very often. Not about one particular Mass, because I tend to say Mass every day. You know, you kind of think about the Mass of the day. But to have experienced a Mass so unusual and like this one and so out of the ordinary. It got me thinking, and now that Mass was 4 weeks ago, and here I am back at home, still kind of buzzing about it. So, it was amazing, and that's what I really wanted to speak with you today about. So, because I was so fortunate to have my recorder with me and to be able to catch this rather unique event on digital, or in digital form, I've been, of course, able to share that with you. So what I'd like to do now is to play you a little bit more. And this is a run-up to the Sanctus. And hopefully you'll be able to, once again, see how beautifully it all kind of slots together. So you can see that this is very impressive, really, and I have to keep reminding myself that this is not a CD, this is not in some concert hall somewhere, this is in a small church in Germany, and you can hear, if you listen closely enough, you can hear some people coughing and spluttering in the background, and I'm kind of glad that that's there. I wouldn't want to remove the coughs, because it shows where this is taking place. This is live. It's a prayerful mass, and it must be said though that the congregation of this particular church are fantastic singers. I have been to this church in previous years, and I'm always struck by two particular things. Both things which don't often happen here in the UK. When you go to church in Burncastle Coos, the church tends to fill up quite quickly, about 20, maybe 25 minutes before Mass, and there is absolute silence in the church. People really foster and engender this incredible prayerful atmosphere, something sadly that doesn't happen very often in our churches in the UK. And the other thing which always surprises me about this particular church, and indeed many of the churches that I've been in Germany, and that is the amazing singing that comes from the congregation. So in this particular Mass, where the Mozart Mass parts are going on, there are parts for the congregation to sing. And I thought I would like to kind of bring a piece in to show you just how good these people are at singing. And I just, one other thing, the organist that you hear playing during this is actually the organist of the church. He's not some highfalutin organist that's been brought in from the diocese. He's there every week, and it's a joy to listen to him. It's also a joy to listen to the congregation singing. So what I've tried to do is track down a little piece of this Mass that has the choir and orchestra, but also a little piece for the congregation, just to give you a flavour of just how well they sing.
Wir haben in der Taufe den Geist empfangen, der uns zu Kindern Gottes macht. Darum wagen wir zu beten. Mit deinem Erbarmen und bewahre uns vor Verwirrung und Sünde, damit wir voll Zuversicht das Kommen unseres Erlösers Jesus Christus erwarten. Denn dein ist das Reich und die Kraft und die Herrlichkeit in Ewigkeit. Amen. Herr Jesus Christus, allein bist der Herr und das Haupt deiner Kirche. Und du bist auch stärker als der Gegenwind und die Wellen unseres Lebens. Schau nicht auf unsere Sünden. Schau auf den Glauben deiner Kirche und schenke unseren Ehen und Familien. Schenke dieser Diözese von Trier. Schenke der ganzen Kirche und durch sie der Welt Einheit und Frieden. Und dieser Friede unseres gekreuzigten und auferstandenen Herrn sei allezeit mit euch. Und mit deinem Geist. Schenken wir uns von Christus her ein Zeichen der Verbundenheit und der Versöhnung und des Friedens.
So it would seem that, there is a great joy that the German congregation there were having in being able to express themselves in this incredible musical way. And the musicality obviously was there because of the orchestra and the choir, but certainly the congregation were very, very much involved in it. So once again, I have to kind of hold my hands up to the likes of Mozart and his contemporaries, who, when I studied music, I studied, mass parts like these, and could never really get my head around them. You always think to yourself, how can this possibly slot into a liturgical setting for today? These masses were written for massive, grand occasions, for, the weddings of kings or princes or whatever. But, they do work so beautifully. And Mozart and the other members of the Genii musical squad of his era, they really knew what they were doing. And if it's done well, as it was done, I know I keep saying this, as it was done in this particular German church, then there is incredible joy, incredible prayerfulness, and incredible musicality brought to the church so that we can all pray twice. The old adage again, that a person who sings praise twice. Well, we can all do that by joining in with this amazing kind of structure to the liturgy that we have. Now then, that doesn't mean to say that, the music of today is bad or is incorrect. In fact, when I think of the Mass that I was listening to and recorded that day, about an hour and 40 minutes long, I just wonder, would I get away with that in my church here in Manchester? It's a very interesting thought. Some of my people are kind of giving me daggers if Mass goes over 45 minutes here. But, this is a time to give to God. And the musicality, certainly of the Mass parts from Mozart, were absolutely stupendous. It was just something that, and I'm nearly 50 years old, I've never heard the likes of this actually going on in a small church like I did that day. And I do have to hold my hands up once again and say that it really works. But would I get away with it here? I don't know. Maybe you would as a one-off. I certainly don't think they'd kind of put up with it every week. But, I just wish that the people perhaps of my own parish here were able to have been there that day, listening to this incredible Mass. It's not quite right just to call it a Mass. It was more of a prayerful celebration of, who we are as human beings, giving glory to God. Yes, in the Eucharist that we are so used to, but also with this injection of incredible music. So I hope you've enjoyed my little ramblings. I was quite excited to have had my my handheld recorder with me, so that I was able to capture some of this, knowing that I'd like to be able to pass it on to you here at Heavens Road FM. And I do hope that you've enjoyed my ramblings. I just wish you could have been there with me, really. It was just so spectacular. And I know this is very second best in so many ways, but I do hope you've enjoyed it. So what I'm going to do now is to leave you with another piece of the orchestra and the choir giving praise to God. So until next time, once again, may God bless you all.